Hey, what's going on, everybody? Okay, so I had another question from TikTok. Thank you guys for all the support on TikTok you've been showing lately. It's been phenomenal. You guys are blowing me up like crazy. So I wanted to get back to this question. It was a two-part question, and the other day we discussed how to draw chiseled faces. Let's go here and check that out. We went over the chiseled face tutorial, and I think we're going to use a lot of the same stuff we worked on and kind of convert that into drawing older faces. So that was the second part of the question, was how do we draw older faces? And the thing to think about with older faces is there's actually going to be a lot of similarities with what we talked about with the chiseled face video, so go back and watch that because a lot of bone structure comes into play and it's really important. But we're really going to focus on how gravity pulls at stuff. And the interesting thing about gravity is it's going to act on wrinkles of the face the same way that it acts on things like clothing and hair. So don't get overwhelmed when you're drawing things like you're trying to figure out how to draw clothing, you're trying to figure out how to draw hair, you're trying to figure out how to draw wrinkles on a face, you're trying to figure out all this stuff, and you just, so many of us as artists, we divide those into different things, but really we need to be looking at them as the same concepts, right? So everything that is pulled down by gravity is still going to be pulled down, right? Like you're still going to have these anchor points right here, and you're still going to have the force of gravity pulling shit down, right? So even if it is fabric on an arm, right, like a t-shirt, and it hangs loose, right, that gravity still pulls it down. Let's give him a little hand here. Right? This is going to be the same exact stuff. Gravity's still going to be pulling it down. Right? Hair, gravity's still going to be pulling it down. Up here, right? That hair loops. It doesn't just go straight up. When you get into an older face, it's going to be kind of the same concept. So what I thought we would do is I thought we would maybe use this guy's face that we use for the chiseled faces, and we would kind of look at some different areas that we want to focus on to really show, at least what I focus on when I want to show older age on a drawing. So the first thing, and one of the easiest things I think, is a lot of times you'll end up with these little wrinkles on the eyes. Out of the corner of the eyes, you get that from just kind of blinking and squinting a lot as you get older. Crow's feet, I think people call them. What I do is just kind of make these little, depending on the age really, just these little sort of jagged marks, right? It doesn't have to be really intricate, and it doesn't have to be a lot. And what they're going to do is kind of connect to the bags on the eyes. So this is your second part. On this guy we talked about, remember we talked about shadows? The underside of shadows? Sort of selling that edge, right? So over here on the cheekbone, right, it comes out like this, and there's the other cheekbone, or the other side of that jawline below it, so it creates a cast shadow, right? We're going to think about these eye bags the same way, and as we get older, that collagen kind of loosens, so these are going to sag a little bit, and they're going to kind of make more of a U, right? And they're going to hang over that little spot, the cheekbone right there. So if we draw it over here on him too. Let's get rid of some of these arrows so it's not so confusing. I wonder if I drew this, actually if I drew this probably in red, I wonder if it would be easier for you guys to see what I'm doing. So then we'll have the little crow's feet, right? They kind of come out of the corner of the eye. And a lot of times what I'm doing here is just I'm adding little lines underneath areas, right? So like we draw like the bags under the eye, and sometimes I'll just add like a little bit of an extra line on the back end of it right there. Yeah, I think I am going to do this in red on a new layer just so you guys can see a little bit better. So kind of shade a little extra under there, right? Depending on the age. And there's all these little lines. The more lines you're going to put into a face, the older it's going to look. So this is one area that I see a lot of artists where they accidentally age up their characters, especially when they paint. I pulled out a photo by, I think her name is Nashua Volquez. It's a free photo to use, but I want to give her some credit. And this is an older woman, but what you see in her face is something that people actually put into a lot of their younger characters, and it is really this area right here. Do you see how heavily that's shaded, how dark that is? A lot of times your characters will look too old because that line is so dark and it's so, I guess, thin. On a younger character, that's going to be much more spread out. Actually, I wonder if we can even maybe try to reverse age her just to show you guys what that might look like. I wonder if we can do this. So we can have these like full cheek areas, right? We can have these fatty cheek areas and these plump cheek areas, and show sort of that jovial look in a character. But the darker and heavier that crease is, the more we're aging them. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing, but I'm just kind of blending out those creases. We can still keep this like plump, and all we're doing is sort of creating a mid-tone and sort of making it a little bit thicker, right? So it's not this heavy crease on here. Now we'll go with a soft brush, get that brush size down a little bit, just kind of to blend it in, right? So do you already see how, and this is kind of like a, I guess, a makeup trick, right? Just by decreasing that sharp edge that's thin, and we kind of made it fatter, and we took the tone down to more of a mid-tone, we de-aged her quite a bit on that side. And by that same property, doing the opposite is going to add age to your character. So kind of think about that when you're painting. And a lot of people are running into issues where they make these characters that just look way older, and it's simply just because people are just putting way too much emphasis on these lines right here. Let me get the right color, right? Versus just having that sort of plump and much more broad mid-tone right there to emphasize like a plump cheek. But same with all this other spot. And that's why I kind of wanted to show you, this is specifically why I grabbed this picture, was I wanted to show you guys that, was that just that one little thing ages a character quite a bit. Just that one area, right? So before and after, you know? Now let's go back up here and work back on our character. And a few more tips. Don't want to take too long on this. I kind of ramble a bit, so apologize, guys. Not really. I want your attention here. I get lonely. Stay. Don't leave me. Okay, so here's gonna be that laugh line, right? So we're gonna age him up. This is part of that line, right? So I'm making it thin. I'm making it more broad. This line has a tendency to kind of even come under the bottom lip here. And what I'll do on this often is sort of have a top line that is a little bit heavier, and at least for me, I'll draw like a bottom line. It's the same thing we did with the eye, right? We had that swoop on the eye, and then I just add a little extra line there. Sometimes adding those little extra lines, the more of those you add, the older your character is going to become. Once again, let's go back down to her. Let's look at that area where that smile line sort of swoops down. You see these? It comes under that. And you see all these little different creases here? They all kind of head back into here, and they all originate from that point. And they still form around those planes of the face that we talked about, right? We still have that pattern with the cheekbones and the jawline with it. But the more lines we have, the older we're going to make that character look. She's even got some that kind of swoop down here. And I have a drawing I'll show you guys in a minute that I did where I really emphasized that to sell the age on it. So back to him. I'm going to cut some of these arrows out as we're aging him up a little bit. Even stuff like down here, right? We talked about that jawline sort of swooping down to the chin. So what are we gonna do here? The same thing we talked about, right? We're gonna give that little bit of extra sag where the skin actually is kind of like hanging off that chin area a little bit more, right? Because that gravity is just pulling it down. So same way we saw with that other lady. So we're focusing on the laugh lines around the face, the smile lines. And then, of course, the forehead. You spend your whole life frowning and wrinkling and wondering what's going on in life. Like what we are, why we're here. And you're going to develop a lot of these lines across the forehead, too, right? That are just sort of naturally there. And these are areas that you're going to want to play with line width, things like that. Kind of mess around, see what you're doing. More wrinkles here, coming out of the corner. More of that. Remember, we want to keep it heavy, dark, thin lines to really emphasize the thickness of that fold and all the shadow the sun's coming from right here up top. It's really creating a ledge right here. That's why it's got that such a dark fold to it, shadow to it. All right, so if we go back and we put all this into black, we'll just grab the lasso tool up here in Clip Studio Paint. This is a really, really cool tool. And if we can set our line, I'm going to set my layer to lock transparent pixels. Grab black and just lasso it around, right? Do you see how much that aged him up? Like that is just a man who's seen some shit. That is a man who's seen some shit in life. And that's really, it's really that simple. Just adding those extra lines and those extra folds, things like that. Thinking about it like clothing and drapery, right? I have a drawing here a while back, and this is another thing we can talk about too. Is obviously a simple thing too. This guy's still got a sort of a chiseled look. He kind of had a chiseled feature when he was younger, but we kind of gave him the wispy hair, the receding hairline. And then even here, this drawing I did, kind of looks like the Boondocks grandpa, but totally wasn't meant to be. Kind of turned out like him. But some other things we can add along the way. If we turn the shading off and on here. Things like liver spots, you know, little details like this. People tend to get more freckles, more liver spots as they get older. I think sometimes with the old men, really adding like a bushy eyebrow, for some reason that's like a little thing that can kind of make somebody look really old. Men get random ass hairs in weird places, and it goes absolutely AWOL as we get older. But you see a lot of these lines, right? Even 2 and 3 part lines that come down through here. And just kind of the randomness of there. And we talked about the sort of those eyebrow arch muscles too, right? And we're gonna give a lot of wrinkles. We could concentrate more wrinkles in the middle here if we wanted to. We got the cheekbones that we covered in the last lesson, but I kind of sagged those down a little bit more too as well. I didn't make those just too sharp like this. I kind of gave it more of a soft sag to it. But that's something that you can really focus on. It's not super complicated once you simplify the shorthand of it, I guess, right? So this is the big thing in comics that I work in, is looking for shorthand and looking sometimes like with the eye wrinkles, like when we talked about coming out of the side of the eye, right? It's not always like, I'm not thinking about what these wrinkles actually look like. I'm just thinking about these shapes that I've made often. Cause your viewer many times is not going to totally spend time like, oh, does that look like the wrinkles? Is that really how they look? They're not going to spend time with that. They're going to look over it quick, and a lot of these sloppy details you don't want to take over from the rest of your piece. So just throw them in there. Shorthand is a great time saver on things. If you can just kind of remember little shapes. When we talked about the chiseled face, we talked about the step, right? Same way here, like using the U's for the wrinkles. You can use that in clothing. You can use just these little shapes like this for wrinkles coming out the side of the eyes. I do a lot of hatching marks just kind of like this around the sides too. Shit like that. It doesn't have to be super complicated. I think sometimes in our heads we make it super complicated, but wrinkles are the same things as clothes or anything else affected by gravity. You look at even as clothes, and that's got the same effects going on with it. Everything is meant to kind of be bunched up and pulled down, and has central gravity points, and is affected by all those things, right? So I hope that helped. I don't know if I really left anything out when it came to drawing older faces, but you can just see how a few key areas, really, to me, there's 3 key areas: the eye wrinkles, which include the eye bags, the side of the eyes, especially the eye bags, the laugh lines around the nose, around the face, and the forehead wrinkles. Just grabbing those areas, just taking those areas into account, you can see how much you can age a character with just a few lines. And I hope that helped you guys. I hope this wasn't too long of a tutorial. Thank you again for Nashua for the photo that we got to use and trace over. This is a really good thing I recommend all you guys do is, if you are struggling with art, grab a real life photo and trace over it. Trace over it with like red, and go over all the curves and the contours and stuff. And like, even if you're just struggling with anatomy, you know what I mean? You can see the tubes in here. And find those tubes that come out of there, right? Look at where they attach. Look at the angles that they go to. So you don't always have to draw out of your mind. Use reference and trace over stuff while you're learning, you know? Look how like caved in these eye sockets are. Look how deep that goes. And also, another interesting thing is, I think as people get older, you'll notice their nose tends to get wider and a little bit bigger as well. So that's something to think about too. But yeah, the eye sockets tend to get, like on her, they're a little bit more heavy up top, right? I don't know how to draw that. I might study that too. But they kind of have this ridge around it where it's really dark there. And it's really like, the skin is just really becoming thinner. And it's really getting, especially in these areas, it's getting much more closer to the skull, it seems like, while these areas are kind of sagging down with gravity. So it's pulling anything extra that was up here sort of into a thinner spot, while everything else kind of is pulled down by gravity. We have so much to look forward to as we go. We have a lot to look forward to. This lady's rocking it though. I love her. Spice of life, dude. She's fucking awesome. Alright. So I hope that helped you guys. Try it. Go take one of your drawings. My recommendation, go take a photo, trace over it. Go take one of your drawings like this. Get some tracing paper if you work traditionally. You don't need to do this digitally. There's no, no gatekeeping on this stuff. But just try to age up your character and see what happens. Work on those little tips. And I hope that helps you guys out a little bit. Let me know if it did in the comments. Let me know what else you would like to see, any tutorials, any speed painting, fan art, whatever you want to do. And yeah, thank you guys a ton. Like I said, the love on TikTok has been amazing lately. So glad y'all are there, and I hope this helps. Night, guys.